Well, welcome, Cynthia. I am so thrilled that you are here with me today. I just feel honored. And, you and I have known each other for about a year, really. We've been talking quite frequently throughout my breast cancer journey. And I met you through my good friend Rhonda. You were her stepmom, and she connected us together because I really wanted to learn more from you because I knew that you had breast cancer and that you were also a plant-based vegan eater. And I wanted to learn more about what kind of nutrition I could, put into my own body. And I wanted to learn more about why it's important. So, welcome. I'm so thrilled that you're here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be here because, these are messages that we just feel compelled to share, to pay our experience forward. Um, because we've been so fortunate. We benefited from the experience of a lot of people who went before us.
Yeah, that's true. And, when I first was diagnosed on June 11th of 2022, I remember sending a message to one of my friends who had breast cancer a few years prior. And she said, "You just wait, Jamie." She says, "You're going to find out this is a sisterhood of all sisterhoods." And she
Yeah.
was right. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and have been so helpful, and again, you were one of them. I believe you said you had breast cancer, what, 21 years ago?
Well,
Appro-
I was diagnosed in 2002.
Okay. Can you share your journey with us and even, maybe some differences that you're seeing between when you had breast cancer versus today?
Well, it just simply started like it does with a lot of women, a routine mammogram. I mean, and in the exam room check, the doctor's fingers running around on your breast, and he noticed something in air quotes and sent me right to get a mammogram. He said he had noticed something in my right breast. Well, that's interest. No, excuse me, in my left breast because the tumor was actually in my right breast. But anyway, I go for the mammogram, and yes, they found something. And they sent me to a surgeon, not an oncologist, not an oncological surgeon, but a general surgeon, who will do your appendectomy. Yeah, he knew a lot about breast cancer, not. And he says, "Oh yeah, don't worry, we've caught it early. Go out to the scheduler, and we'll do a mastectomy by the end of the week." Oh, all right, wrong. Couldn't have been more wrong. Uh, but talking about how we reach out to people and the profound difference it can make. I got home and I remembered a name, somebody I knew whose wife was going through breast cancer. So I called him. He was writing for the Gazette Journal at the time. And he told me the most important thing I've ever heard in my life. Go get a second opinion. And his wife was down in Houston at University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. And I was on an airplane by the end of the week. And wow, got down there, and when they heard what had been planned up here, they were appalled. Not surprised necessarily, because they heard that a lot, I think. And, they did all their own testing, and they found that no, it wasn't early stage, and no, it wasn't small. And given the facts, the real facts of my tumor, to go directly to surgery would have been exactly out of step with the national guidelines. Well, it wasn't a lump in that sense. It was a lobular carcinoma that they had missed for a long time, probably because of my dense breast tissue. They don't show up well on mammograms. And it was a triple negative tumor, ER, PR, HER2 negative. which requires a very different type of treatment.
Mhm.
And so, but talking about differences between then and now, as you and I have talked about, there just wasn't a good understanding in places like Reno about dense breast tissue. The conversation hadn't started yet.
Yeah, that's pretty scary too. I mean, luckily you had the wherewithal to reach out to your friend and be on that path of getting second opinions, which I know that is one of your biggest pieces of advice for people who are diagnosed with breast cancer and any cancer for that matter. So yeah, but you had to learn in a way that you could have seriously gone down a path that would have completely changed the trajectory of your recovery and your treatment and all of that. So I'm glad
Absolutely.
that you got that second opinion. MD
Yes.
Anderson, I hear very, very good things about MD Anderson. I have several friends who've gone to MD Anderson and they've got their stuff together for sure.
They're the number one cancer center in the world, uh, and they're part of the um, Houston Medical Center, which is the largest one on the planet.
Mhm.
You can sit in the 10th floor of your hotel, and as you look out and around, it's nothing but medical. It's
Yeah,
utterly amazing,
I
and
have a
their
friend
whole
of mine who goes there regularly and she takes pictures from her hotel room. Two friends actually who have taken pictures from their hotel room saying, "There I am." So
yeah,
that's pretty comforting.
it really is, and that's where I first learned about a multidisciplinary team approach. You're not just seeing one doctor in
Mhm.
isolation. I would go down there for an appointment. My oncologist would see me, breast oncologist, not a general oncologist.
Mhm.
She would see me, and then the rest of the team would come in. I mean, the guy that was going to do the radiation, the nutritionist, the psychologist, the surgeon, everything. They would all
Yeah.
come in, examine me, talk to me, then they'd go across the hall and confer. And she had to defend her case every single time.
Good. Good. Yeah, it's really comforting when your doctors communicate with each other. I've experienced some situations this year where, wait a minute, didn't you talk to so and so? Wait, did why am I telling you this? Why don't you already know this? So yeah,
Well,
so
in places like Reno, that where you're going to a practice on in one part of town, and they're not necessarily communicating with the other people you're going
mhm,
to have to deal with, and even vis-a-vis the tumor board. I've sat in on tumor boards at
mhm.
St. Mary's back in the day when I was on the cancer committee, and they're trying, but it's just not the same as going across the hall and everybody, after they've seen you.
Do you think it's because they don't have enough people here?
It's partly that, I suppose, but it's just the way our for-profit medical system
Mm,
works.
mhm.
MD Anderson is not for profit. They're an educational institution, and they don't have to worry about billable time.
Okay. Okay, that makes a big difference.
It
Huge
does.
difference. I'm just, yeah, I really would like to see our area get a lot better. But I do thank you for putting that piece of advice out there to advocate for yourself, number one. And we'll talk
Okay.
about more about that a little bit later, but also getting that second opinion. And a lot of women tend to be pretty strong in that way, but there are some that are just, oh, let's just trust the doctors and they know what they're doing. Well, not, I mean, and granted, I mean, I think that they do know what they're doing in some regards, but sometimes they do not. And I just think that asking questions, and even if you're a pain in the ass, if you feel like you are, ask those questions anyway, even if it's just for clarification or because a lot of times, you as the patient see things and feel things that the doctors do not. So thank you for saying that.
Let me relate one little episode, not about me, but about a neighbor. She came running over one evening and said, she lifts up her blouse and says, "Feel this," in her breast, because I had already gone through cancer. Yeah, there was something there. Of course, it could have been all kinds of things, but she said, "I'm going to make an appointment. Will you come with me?" Sure. Okay. Power and numbers and all that. Um, got to her doctor appointment about a week later, and he does an exam, and he starts telling her about how just come back and we'll excise the tumor, and yeah, you'll be fine. And I kind of cleared my throat and I said, "Well, do you think you might want to consider this, this, and this?" Also, I'm trying to not be a jerk,
Right.
but still. And he looked at me and he says, "Oh, you're one of those that thinks that you can just look things up on the internet and you know more than I do." And I went, "Oh, okay." And she was just the kind of person who was not going to advocate for herself, and she went with what he said. There you go.
So what
What can
happened
you
to
do?
her?
She died of cancer. It metastasized to her brain, and she passed away several years later, but it was nasty in between.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very frustrating, Cynthia. Um I do believe that I don't even know what to say about what that doctor said to you.
And I heard that
And
time after time when I was a member of the St. Mary's On with Life group, breast cancer group, time and time again. And you just have to sit there in the meetings and hear these women go, "But I don't want to leave town, and my doctor, he's so nice, I really like him." And you've just heard the most horrible um, things, and you're just, you can just support people and go, "Okay, I'm here for you, whatever you need and however you want to do it."
yeah. You know,
Period.
um I I think that there might be some doctors that have quite an ego. I have run across doctors who don't have an ego. They definitely know their stuff, but there are some that are like, I don't know. I don't know what is going on with you. We need to send you to a specialist or whatever it is. And even as an educator of 20 years, I got to a point in my career that when students would question me, and I'm the professional, right? I have the education. I know how to teach, English or social studies or whatever it is. But I got to a point where if a student questioned me about something and I didn't know, maybe, or maybe I thought, oh, well, that's another way. That's a really interesting way to look at it. I always said something to the student like, "Wow, I hadn't even thought about it that way. Let's explore that. Let's look that up. Let's try that," or whatever it is. But I really think that there are some people who cannot lower their, or whether they think it's lowering their guard or whatever it is, and listen to someone that might be right, and or might be at least looking into. And so I encourage people, just as much as you probably do, to still ask those questions and be one of those people.
Well,
And
let me give
and
you another example from a medical person's perspective. I was good friends with a doctor who at that time was chief medical officer at St. Mary's. He called me on his way home when he had just gotten the diagnosis. He was in tears and he said, "Can I come over?" Yeah, come on by. He had esophageal cancer, and pretty advanced at that. They wanted to immediately do surgery here, and that would have involved removing part of his jaw. He says that will end my practicing medicine
Oh.
here, and well, anywhere. And I said, well, here's what I suggest. He went to UCSF, he went to UCLA, and then he went to MD Anderson. Now, this is a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up at MD Anderson, but it could have been any of the other two. And he got a good diagnosis and a treatment plan that he came back to Reno and got his treatment here. While he was in the chemo chair, his doctor friends would come by to see how he was doing. And they were kind of like dismissive. Well, that's not going to work. That's not what we would have recommended. He survived his cancer and
And
continued to practice medicine with a
good. Yeah.
full intact jaw.
Right. So he probably turned into even a little bit of a different doctor himself
He
as
was
far
the
as his
one that
thought
had
process.
St. Mary's reach out to me and put me on the cancer committee.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, and those kind of life-changing decisions, I would imagine that he probably told his patients or other people to get a second opinion,
Yes,
and maybe even a third opinion. So,
yes,
all right, good.
exactly.
Well, you're one smart cookie, let me tell you. I
It,
one of the things that I really have learned a lot from you and have thoroughly enjoyed learning about. Now, granted, during chemo, it was really hard because my thought process was different and taste buds and
oh yeah,
the energy to actually cook something. But I was
one
still learning a
person.
lot. But what is plant-based eating? What is it all those years ago that encouraged you to change the way you were eating? That has everything. I mean, where did it connect to?
It's complicated, but I'm a small woman, small boned, as the saying goes. And I was never heavy until I hit my late 30s. And I ballooned up to 164 pounds, and I'm only 5'3". And I was getting really concerned. I was tired all the time. I couldn't walk down the street without being winded. And that's just not working for me. And so I knew I had to do something. And at that time, you could go to nutrition counseling up at the UNR Medical School. So I went up there and they got me started on the right path. But it still didn't quite get there. Well, I don't know. Several years ago, we're big climate warriors here. And I know that there's a role played by eating animals. And plus, I love animals. I don't want to eat my friends. And so I became vegetarian. But then when I saw the Forks Over Knives documentary and then the Game Changers, my world flipped. And it just wasn't a stretch to go the rest of the way. And my husband saw it too, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm on board." Yeah, there you go. I mean, it
Yeah.
was kind of just like that.
I watched the Forks Over Knives. I've watched them in the past, but I've never quite made the leap 100% into vegan or plant-based eating. At this point in my life, I'm more immersed in it than I ever have been in my life, and I've learned a lot about our diet and how it connects to cancer. So at some point,
Yeah.
you learned a lot about how to keep cancer away, right? By what we're consuming. What is your experience with that?
Well, I started reading a lot of studies about the connections between, first of all, being overweight and hormonally driven cancers, because there's just an absolute correlation there. When my overweight oncologist at MD Anderson, she and I were talking about it, she started losing weight. She took it that seriously because she has a family history of breast cancer. And I went, boy, if Marjorie is concerned about this, I think I better get on board. So I started reading all the research I could get my hands on. And, this is a long arc. You can't, research doesn't exist in isolation. You have to look at it over time and as one thing informs the next. Fine. The consensus now is pretty clear that being overweight essentially drives hormonally driven cancers. And the pathology report after they removed my tumor did indicate, even though I was characterized as a triple negative breast cancer, there were some ER positive cells there, which is why she put me on tamoxifen
Mhm.
for a year. But eating and being overweight could cause a recurrence of the cancer. It's really that
Mhm.
simple. And I don't want to go there again.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like I say, it's pretty clear cut, at least for me.
So it's pretty clear cut for me too. There are situations where I'm in a place where the only thing there is to really eat is chicken or whatever. But I will
Yeah.
tell you that I actually have lost my taste for meats. I think it's because I've been eating mostly plant-based. And I will tell you that before I got cancer, about a year and a half prior, I also was overweight. I am 5'5" I think I was up to 173 pounds or something like that. Heaviest I've ever been. I had
Mhm.
lost 33 pounds about a year and a half before I found out I had cancer. So by the time I got the cancer or found out about it anyway, I I had been really I was healthy, and I know that healthy people can get cancer as well. I mean, it's
Mhm.
silly to
Sure.
say that only unhealthy overweight, right? When we know that that's not true. We know that healthy bodies can get cancer. But I often wonder what was going on in my body when I was overweight. If that was kind of the start of what was to come, but it's neither here nor there. We can't really pinpoint that. But I did feel really healthy by this time last year. And so as I and the program that I was on, I was eating all these fuelings that that were vegan and didn't have any meat in them or anything like that. But then I was having lean and green meals, whether it be, the greens with chicken or fish or whatever it was. So, one of the things that a lot of people say about plant based diets is that you can't get enough protein. Can you address that
Yeah.
misunderstanding?
Yeah. Yeah. I like every other vegan. We've heard that. I've even got a T-shirt that says, "Yes, I get plenty of protein. Thank you." Um, to say it in the simplest possible terms, if you're getting enough calories, you're getting enough protein. And it really is that simple. And we try here, my husband and I, we try and have beans every day if we're not having some of the meat analogs, and I try and keep those to a minimum because they are sort of highly processed. Um, or soy products, or but you don't have to plan every meal rigorously and, be a nutritionist. You don't have to do that. You pour
No,
soy milk
it's
on your
actually
cereal in the morning. Hello.
Yeah, it's
That gives you
actually
that
pretty
fresh
simple.
air. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple, and because I even thought that at the beginning, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to learn this, that, and change everything. But no, what I learned was is that if you have all the staples that you need for plant based eating, and which I do. I bought them all. So now I'm like, okay, now I need to use them. But like nutritional yeast and just all these different things that are the basic items that
Hmm.
you use in plant-based eating, then it is actually pretty simple, and then it becomes really fun. I like one of your pieces of advice to take some beans and freeze them in plastic baggies, and then you can pull them out and put them in any kind of meal. And I will say that you have a wonderful blog. Is it Simply Cynthia?
Simply by Cynthia.
Simply, yeah, and we'll have that in the show notes, because for my audience, you've got to go check out this blog that Cynthia has together. She's got wonderful recipes among other topics that she talks about, but she posts, all of her, recipes and things that she's eating every day. And I actually did have an opportunity to talk to your husband, Ron, about that the other night when we were at dinner. And he said that he really truly believes, like, he's 90, what is he, 90?
He'll be 92 in September.
92. And that
Yeah,
guy, like, he's like rocking. He says that he really truly believes that his blood tests and have come back really good. He really truly believes it's because he doesn't eat meat.
he got rid of his AFib.
Yeah.
The
That's a
tough
big
one.
deal. That's a huge
It is a
deal.
big deal. Yeah.
Oh yeah, what a cute man he is. You're just such a cute couple, and I just really am inspired by both of you. And I truly believe that what I've learned about diet and you know and cancer and any illness for that matter is so much because of you. What There's a huge misunderstanding. You had brought up soy a little while ago. I had someone who insinuated at the very beginning of my diagnosis that because I had eaten soy, that that might be why I had cancer. And so, can you clear up any misunderstandings about that? Because I know that it was such a big scare,
Hmm.
like in
Oh,
the
I've heard
last
it.
20 years or whatever.
Yeah, I've heard that lots from people too. Um, I've spent lots of time in Asia, particularly Japan and China. They eat a lot of soy there. That's kind of home base for soy products. And yet, um, the women there have the lowest rates of breast cancer in the world and
Interesting.
hormonally driven cancers. Yeah, you can't have it both ways. So, yeah, it's been rigorously investigated for more than 25 years, and the science just says unequivocally that soy is protective against hormonally driven cancers. But scientists aren't good at having a megaphone and being social media influencers, so they don't get hurt as much. It's just that
Right.
simple.
Where did all that? I feel like it was a lot of propaganda. Where did all that come from, do you think?
I don't think it's propaganda so much as misunderstanding.
Okay.
You know, words that are similar sounding. Soy contains phytoestrogens, plant-based estrogens. And then the human body, our bodies produce estrogen. But a phytoestrogen and estrogen produced by our ovaries, for example, they're not the same thing.
Oh,
They
okay.
sound similar, but not the same. And this just, people get it confused. They're busy, they're not biologists, you know.
But who's pushing that? Who was pushing that? Because I feel like there is a faction out there that seemed to be pushing that, because I remember when all of that news came out and it was like, oh my God, don't eat soy. So I stopped eating, drinking soy milk or eating any kind of soy because of that, and then when I went in to talk to my surgeon at the beginning of my diagnosis, I said, I even thought to myself, I know that some of the fuelings that I was eating with, the program that I was on had some soy in it. Not a lot, but it's nevertheless still had some soy. And I specifically asked her, and my surgeon seemed to be quite up on nutrition because she spent most of her time talking to me about nutrition and what I should and should not be eating. And I asked her, do you think that soy played any kind of role in my cancer? And she looked at me and she said, no. She said, soy is the lowest of the low concerns we even have. So that was, and then shortly after that is when I got a message from a friend of mine who insinuated that the soy may have played a role in it. So
Hmm.
I just feel like that it's when I first started hearing about it, I felt like it was being pushed by a faction of people, and I just didn't understand it at all. I don't know whether it had to do with the
I,
meat industry
you
or
know, I hesitate to go to the nefarious motivation, but I think people, they misunderstand the science, or the basic nomenclature, and then they're looking for clicks. And unfortunately, that's what works. That's what people hear.
okay.
And it's, you just got to step back occasionally and question your own assumptions.
Yeah, because I don't remember ever hearing anything about phytoestrogen or any of that. It had nothing to do with that. I just heard in the media, don't eat soy. That's like, where is
Yeah.
this coming from? Yeah, yeah. So, well, thank you for clearing that up. I mean, I eat tofu and whatever, and that's where we get a lot of our protein as well. So to wrap this up, Cynthia, what other we talked about self-advocating, we talked about getting second opinions. Is there any other piece of advice that you can give to uh, people who have been just first diagnosed, or to caregivers, or anything like that?
Well, for the person that's just been diagnosed, know that for at least the first few days, it's going to be a shit show. There's just no way around that.
Right.
Um, you know, um, give yourself time every day to get angry, to cry, swear, set a timer. That's what I used to do. Set a 15-minute timer and go get crazy for 15 minutes. Ding. Okay. Other people have gotten through this. You're not doing this by yourself. Other people have broken trail, and they're on the other side of it, and you will probably get on the other side of it too. But if you're in a constant state of panic, you
Mhm.
can't think clearly.
Right.
And to that, I would say meditation. Um, I found an app that works for me because I'm not a woo kind of person. I needed something that was more straightforward. Um, that is awesome, and I set
That's
aside
the
time
waking up.
every day.
That's the waking
Yeah, the
up app,
Waking Up
right?
app with Sam Harris. And he has a lot of the other kind of folk on his thing, and you can tap into those if that's what works for you, speaks to you. But you've got to find a way to calm your own fear. You can't operate effectively from fear. I learned that in emergency management. It just doesn't work.
Oh, it can make you sicker too. Oh,
Yeah.
it was, I will say that in the beginning, as you say, it was a shit show for me. I really felt like I was being sucked up into another crazy dimension of
Hmm.
time and whatever. And I've mentioned it before. I woke up in July one morning. It was like early July, I think it was. It was before my first chemo treatment. I woke up, I was awake all night long just thinking to myself, you need to get out of this darkness, Jamie. You need to figure something out. And I remember you telling me about the Waking Up app. And I reached out to my friend Eddie well, I mean, he wasn't my friend at that time, but I had found him on Facebook. He's a therapist in Australia. He will be a guest on my show
Yay.
very shortly. But he was very instrumental in getting me through that shit show period of time.
Uh-huh.
I had a couple of consultations with him. He is full on plant-based eater. He is all about making sure that you're not just focusing on the physical part of cancer, that you are focusing on the mental and the emotional part. Meditate,
Yes.
he says, whatever it takes.
If it's
Go to
going to
Reiki.
church every day, go to church every day.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
whatever
Whatever
you get
works.
out in nature. Take a walk,
Yes.
whatever it
Yes.
takes.
Yes. And that's what I started doing. I was like, okay, I went for a walk. My husband got me out right after chemo treatments, and we went walking, and it was really hard, but I did it anyway. And I listened to the Waking Up app and the Aura app. I went to Reiki. I was in therapy pretty much every week, and I still see
Mhm.
my therapist because lo and behold, you don't just get over stuff after you're done with cancer. You still are
No.
healing for a long period of time. And so I still go to therapy. I still do some meditation. I talk. This podcast alone is wonderful for my healing journey. And I'm
Yeah.
sure for a lot of others. So I'm hopeful that that people find peace and information and just through these conversations. And I just feel like I just am very grateful that you're here to share your expertise, your opinions, your story, your journey, and clearing up, misunderstandings about plant-based eating, misunderstandings about soy, and giving that great advice. So thank you. And I will have your blog in the show notes. And I might even, you might even send over, or I can, a link to Waking Up so
Oh
that we
yeah.
can share that with our audience. Such a great app.
It,
Such a
it
great app.
is
I
it
loved it.
is a 30-day free trial.
Yeah, it is a free trial, and that's what got me hooked. So,
Oh, and
anyways, go
one
ahead.
other link I want you to put on there is to the Ruby RUXBE /
Yes.
Forks Over Knives course, and also the Blue Zones course, Dan Buettner's Blue Zones course. I'm doing that
Can,
one now.
can you send
Coaching
me
course.
those three links via
Hmm.
text, and I will paste those
Yeah.
into the show notes? Yeah,
Okay,
those are great, great resources. Well,
they
thank
are.
you. If there's is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up this amazing
I
interview?
want to for doing the heavy lifting with this podcast. I think it's an awesome
Well,
idea.
I do too. And I mean, I just feel like, people out there need to have as many resources as they possibly can at their fingertips. And, they can go through and listen to whatever episode they want to listen to. And so, again, thank you very much, Cynthia. I appreciate you. And to my audience, if you want to reach out to Cynthia, you can click on her blog. And I think you probably have a way to reach out as far
Yeah.
as emailing or whatever. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, until next time, I look forward to seeing my aunt. If I don't even, I look forward to my next episode.
Okay.
Have a good
Great.
day, Cynthia. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.